Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Darshan Talks. This is the recent recap. Today we're going to talk a little bit about the metaverse, and we're going to talk about what that is, what the implications are, and is it really something you need to worry about? Um, we have with us Major Hoffman. Major, I forgot to actually tell you, I was on a couple of different conversations, and the two things that came up in both conversations was they really like Major. I was surprised by that, not because they like you, but because they specifically called you out.
I was surprised
Uh,
people enjoyed your conversations. Thanks, Darshan. You're
as
really
someone
kicking off
who
with those compliments today.
as someone who actually and actively um, didn't sort of avoids getting on the camera, that's not something that's your favorite thing in the world. You're actually quite good at it, is my point, and kudos to you. So that's awesome. Um, I I on the other hand, no one really said they like me, so maybe I should
Everyone likes
stay
you.
at the back of the
Everyone
game.
likes you. It's a given. It's a
Okay,
given.
we'll go with that. We'll go with that. Um, so let's think a little bit about what the metaverse is. So Major, let's talk about the metaverse. You're an
Let's let's
IT
let's pause
guru.
for a moment. Let's pause for a
Okay.
moment. We're actually using an article as launching pad, right? So
Yeah.
the one we're talking about specifically, if you want to kind of pull this
I'm,
up,
I'm gonna
it's
pull it up as we're speaking.
it's from
Allow.
it's from Forbes. It's called the amazing possibilities of healthcare in the metaverse. It talks about telehealth. It talks about you know the
AI.
metaverse,
It
what it can
talks.
do
Yep.
about blockchain, and it goes a bit in depth with certain pieces and certain elements, and that kind of led me into a rant with Darshan that I've been trying to talk. Because what happens is every week he sends me a list of articles, about five or so, and we only talk about one. So it's really it's the first one, and at this point I'm like, I really want to talk about this. This is a really good topic. This is excellent. There's a lot here, a lot to cover. And so today we're talking about how the metaverse, like the possibilities of healthcare and what it means, and the implications of what can happen. Uh, so that's my take on this conversation. Unless it should
Well,
go.
my take was slightly different. My take was I've had a couple of these conversations, sometimes from a privacy perspective, sometimes from a ethical perspective. But and I'm sure we should probably drop a link to it in the conversations. But I guess we need to start from the beginning. You're an IT guru, so do you remember what the metaverse is? Do you want to talk a little bit about what that is?
Um, if it's one of those, like, okay, so metaverse, I would say it's like a self-contained environment, a
Yeah,
company
yeah.
would create, right? So you have a bunch of in an ideal scenario for these companies, you exist in their ecosystem. Okay, so what when people say metaverse, you're thinking in your mind it might be VR, it might be like crazy tech stuff. It's up the remember whenever people would say cloud storage, and people said, what
Yeah,
do you do, throw your flash drive in the air? Like, what is cloud storage? Like, this is
right.
kind of at that point where people are still kind of trying to understand, similar to how blockchain was, and people still don't understand really what blockchain is to a point. but
Right,
but
right.
anyway, but writing into that Google Drive, your Google Drive or cloud storage or Dropbox, anything stored in the cloud, it's not that superficial, or it's not that like high tech kind of thing. Everyone here, everyone we talk to, everyone who's listening to this exists in some ecosystem from some company, be it Apple, Microsoft. That is a pseudo metaverse. It's just there's like an arms race towards these namifications of meta this, and a verse this, and a unit this, and so a lot of wires get crossed when people talk about metaverse. Like, it's like the buzzword, right? But
Yeah.
ultimately we use metaverse elements every day. So that, and it's so like Outlook, that's a piece of the Microsoft metaverse, right? That's
Is
what
it though? Is that what people are saying when they say the metaverse? Like, I feel like you're right in that. That's the truth is, and I was gonna go into this. People have been talking about the metaverse right now, in and discussing that there's something really cool about this next generation AR VR stuff. But people have been talking about Second Life, which was 5, 10, 15 years ago. And then there were variants of Second Life, which is a game in like the 2000s. Even
By the
even
way,
those chat views. Yeah,
to be clear, Metaverse itself is actually related to VR. It's that ecosystem in a virtual space. I
correct.
guess is a good way to say that.
Correct. But I guess the question we're really asking is it so different? Why does it why does it matter that why is there a gold rush for the metaverse? And my thought process is there's a gold rush for the metaverse because quite honestly, Facebook's running out of options. Facebook knew that social media can only last so long. People have the money that can be made in social media is kind of towards the end of its life cycle. So they need to have some strong base in the future. So what did they do? They basically said uh, Windows owned the desktop, Apple and Google owned the phone, and they can track you completely through that. What is the next forum for people to congregate around? And that was Oculus, and that's what we AR VR. Um, so I think you're right. I think there's an argument to be made as to is this gold rush even a real thing, or is this something that just tech companies want to happen, and that's just because that's where the next pot of gold is. So what's your take on that?
Well, you mentioned Second Life. And I totally cut you off when you started talking about that. What kind of start from there and explain a bit what you've been hearing about that?
Sure. So when I think of Second Life, and just to be clear, I'm not a gamer, but when I think of Second Life, I think about this system, and I think people can still go in and look at it. It's a game that you can play, and essentially you live as you have a character that's in this other virtual reality. Well, in this game, and that's you, and that's what it was. The difference between Second Life, which is a game that's two-dimensional, and what we're talking about now in the metaverse is it's three-dimensional. And if you want to get a real feeling for what that looks like, you can look up the Steven Spielberg movie. Which one am I blanking on? They had one very recently. I'm gonna pull it up while I think through it. But they literally show you what the metaverse would look like. The part that's interesting to me is the healthcare implications of it, which is people are coming on and saying, "Well, I want to mark my piece of the universe in that." And what does that mean? It means I want to have my own hospital, so I can have people come on and meet me virtually instead of having to leave their homes. And does that have value? Maybe I can go talk to my pharmacist about questions. Maybe I can enroll in a clinical trial um, through the metaverse. Those are opportunities that people are talking about already. Um, but at a realistic level, do you think that that's something people want, or is that just something tech companies want?
It's something tech companies want people to want.
That's a good answer. That's really true. It's what tech companies want people to want. But do you think we're gonna get there, or is this
No.
like the segue? No,
No.
really.
No. No,
Why?
okay. So just to kind of piggyback on what you said about movies and kind of representing in different interpretations of metaverse and what that means, and they never haven't, so like I mean, talk about the Matrix. Talk about
Yeah, that's
like
great.
every movie where there's an alternative universe or a dystopian society, where there's like the hacker man and like the quick typing on the keyboards, and
Ready Player
I'm
One is
in,
the movie I was thinking
so
of. Yeah.
like that kind of stuff. We do live in an age, where a hacking group just said that they hacked satellites for a country. Like that's crazy,
Great.
right? But when we talk about Second Life, and that's a great jumping point for what's going to happen to metaverse. Rather, it's a great representation of what's going to happen in metaverse. You keep talking about Second Life in past tense. It's still a thing. Go to secondlife.com. You'll see it. I promise. Now, the thing is, just so people are aware, Second Life it's an online multimedia platform, right? You're an avatar, and you have a literal second life in this virtual world. It was developed and owned by a San Francisco based firm, and it launched in 2003. So it actually saw rapid growth from quite a few years through 2013. Rather, in 2013, it had approximately 1 million regular users. We're not talking about a sudden boom. We're talking about people who logged in every day, active, and it's not like these people. It's a lifestyle for them. It's they log in, they live, they exist there. It's a thing. It's not gamified. It's not. The problem is businesses tried to actually have a foothold. They actually jumped into.
This is the Second Life marketplace. To your point, that's exactly what they're looking at. This is what you can buy on Second Life as we speak.
Think of it like a virtual Etsy.
Virtual what?
Etsy. All right. So
yeah,
you have these
kind
people
of.
who make different things just so you can wear them.
I can buy a latex bodysuit. I can buy flip flops. I can buy.
You are so into this right now. You're so excited.
It's fascinating to me. To me, this idea, I don't even know what this word means. Breedables.
Don't.
I guess pets. You could buy pets for your own avatar on Second Life.
And there is something to be said about having, like, people they make a living on this platform. It's a thing.
Yeah.
We actually had brick and mortar stores try to have a version of their stores on the service, right? So you had like Amazon, or you got not Amazon, sorry, but you had like Barnes and Nobles. You had, like, remember Hastings? But there were problems though, and a lot of the problems that held it back, and the reason these companies stepped back from the platform was low engagement, and the ROI just wasn't there. I mean, we're talking about, when you look at this, right? You see remote meeting is defined. Imagine all the data we need to actually have that connection for it to not stutter and for it to be an immersive experience. So data transfer was like data bandwidth for your internet connection. That was a huge thing. And imagine 2003. Were you on dial-up? I remember not really getting high speed until I went to college. That's like the major urban areas really kind of had those connections. The accessibility of broadband was just all over the map. To top that off, you had low poly graphics. So if you look at these graphics, these are actually high poly graphics. And when I say poly, I mean they don't look like squares. Okay, so a sphere looks like a sphere as opposed to a cube. And the problem is, the more cartoony it is, and you're talking about representing a real life in a sort of augmented reality and augmented virtual form, right? So Second Life is more of an augmented, sort of, maybe not augmented, but it's more of a third person, first person immersive experience that you can actually access on a desktop. The thing is, Darshan, it's boring.
Is it?
It's boring. It's essentially a blank a canvas, right? Imagine every essay you've ever written, or every paragraph of text, staring at that blinking cursor. That's what standing in this place is like.
Interesting. So it's basically, well, what you see as boring, some people might see as the opportunity to define whatever they want.
Some people see as the opportunity to make it not boring, and that's how these marketplaces start, right? That's how these services are created. I need this to be an interesting space. But the problem is, these aren't games. The problem is, this is a representation of an alternate way of living. Okay. So for a normal person, or no, I'm sorry, not that's ableist, but like for someone who uses this as a form of connection, this is actually a thing people prefer to do. And that's great. This exists for that purpose for them. Now, to varying degrees, we approach a game with an expectation of rules that are predefined, right? If you approach a service like a game, but it has no parameters, it's going to go on two ways. You're either going to back out and move on, or you're going to dig deep and see what you can build. Right. So that's, people jump into Minecraft. I don't know if you have ever jumped into that.
I never got into Minecraft. No, I know people who did. Usually kids, but yeah.
Right. Well, it's a place to express. Automatically, boom. You have all of these tools at your disposal to creatively express yourself. If you've got other things going on, other priorities, you're not going to want to do that right now. You gotta let the dog take out the garage, the garbage. Take the dog on a walk. Like there are things that are actually pressing, but. And I'm not saying that it adds a certain priority for one thing or another. But what I'm saying is different people are going to react this different ways, and unfortunately, this is not. This needs to be more at the forefront of the conversation of where Metaverse is going to go. Honestly, have you ever heard of Roblox?
I have. I didn't know what that was though.
It can be a little confusing, but it's not what you. What do you think it is? Like when you hear Roblox, what do you imagine?
So I imagine essentially blocks, which I know is not the right answer, but that's literally what I imagine.
Well,
so I visualize sort of. Really? Okay.
Well, it's more of a stylistic approach. It's more of different avatars. Think of it like Second Life, but where we talked about low poly, it's low poly. Mm-hmm. You're a square box, blocks, right? It's a platform. So they actually take the concept of Second Life and gamify it. Okay. So it's a platform for games with two different types of users. Ultimately, you have users that create the game and you have users that play those games. So as Second Life, you have users that build houses and skins and all this real life adult stuff. In Roblox, it's more creating these kid games with, with like a certain scripting language called Lua. And so these other, so Roblox provides a platform for these and assets. So you just create, I fed the boxer and he is snoring so hard. So, So Roblox gives you all these assets, and a platform to make these games, and it was great when it started out. And the reason here's why it's important. Here's why I bring it up. Users who play the games pay money. They pay money to access certain privileges, be it items or access to different areas. And the biggest issue right now with that service. Child predators and grooming. So there's it, because ultimately it's going to be a victim of its own scaling kind of thing. It's great. It makes millionaires out of people, but now instead of these small independent these kids that they intend for, they want people, these independent developers, to kind of grow and create these games. What's happening is you have these game studios coming in and acting like kids and providing these environments where kids can interact with whom they think they are kids. So like there's this oversight that doesn't exist. There's so this is this is happening right now with Metaverse. I think that there was a thing where they made a boundary around like personal space, like mandatory or something, like because people would get sued, anyway, it is what it is. But my overall point is this: Metaverse is trying to be the Roblox for adults. It's currently, anyway, that's my point.
No, I think that's an interesting point. So what I hear you saying is we try to connect it to the Metaverse. I mean, we talked about Second Life, we talked about Roblox. What I hear you saying is Metaverse is trying to be a thing. It's not in a mature enough place to make it. Having said that, I know about FDA products that are being approved or may be approved that are based on the Metaverse. There are people saying things like, while Roblox and Second Life may not be able to give you an escape from your day-to-day pressures, putting on these glasses gives you that break that you may want. So I can see an argument for that. And let's talk a little bit. I mean, we've spoken now a little bit about what the problems are, but let's talk about the opportunities. And the opportunities, for example, when we go back,
like I'm such devils in the details. Like I'm such a negative Nancy right now with this. I
think it's a fair point though, because you've seen two of them fail already, or at least not succeed in the way that they'd hoped.
Well, we're seeing a third, so it's
right.
But here's the thing: we keep talking about these companies trying to take advantage of a space and get there first, and all of this stuff, and then how we access and interact with different ecosystems and different companies. But when it comes to healthcare, we get excited
Mhm.
about the possibilities and the theory, but practice is a little different, right? Telehealth, it's a great supplement for in-person visits, but if you rely on it too much, you get burned. All right. There are a few blind spots that need to be considered. And this is where oversight, this is where FDA kind of comes in, right? Uh, the FTC reported there were 200,000 cases of identity theft in between January
Really?
2020 and January 2022,
Oh,
right? Yeah.
in the
It's a huge,
metaverse.
just in general. Like, so because people were at home more, and so they were
Yeah.
doing other things online, they had more access, and so internet was a big, those internet tubes. So the thing is, identity theft has always been a huge issue. It's just there was a spike, right, in these theft attempts, and this is just what was reported, right? So when we're talking about initial patient consultations, when we're talking about monitoring progress and adherence to treatment plans, where's the line between telehealth and in-person visits drawn? That's not defined entirely yet, right?
No,
Or
no, I had a telehealth visit today, and we had some problems with it.
what were the problems you had?
Well, in my case, it was I was supposed to meet the doctor at 11 o'clock, and she had. If I was sitting in the office, she would have thought that I would come in at one time. But since I wasn't, it didn't sort of ping her. She thought I was coming at 11:30, so I was waiting there for a while. And that was just how
Well, I mean, was that the platform fault? Like, there's these
I see
growing
that
pains.
as you see it as a growing pain. I see that as a reasonable, like, I have a reasonable expectation of being seen by the doctor at 11.
This is
She
interesting, by the way.
Why?
Just let's put a pin in that for a moment. I just want to kind of express that I've been negative Nancy about the entire idea of a metaverse, right? We're
Great.
talking about telehealth and we're talking about your experience in it. And I'm saying these are growing pains of a new process, right? You're like, that dog ain't gonna hunt.
Basically, yeah. But I'm not drawing the connection between. I mean, I see your natural connection between telehealth and the metaverse, but I'm taking it one step further. To me, telehealth is a Zoom call, and I wouldn't accept being a half hour late for a Zoom call.
Was this your first meeting with this person, with this physician?
With this physician, no, I've met this physician multiple
Was
times.
it the first time you used the platform that they used?
Yes, yes.
Growing pains. Like, you have to accept
No,
some
they've
sort
used
of,
that platform multiple times.
but Darshan hasn't.
So, but I was on time. So if I was
I
late,
can
maybe
tell you
that's
this.
one
I
thing.
can tell you this. I've been, we've all had some form of telehealth. This is the
Sure, sure.
assumption on my part, right? So I'm assuming everyone has experienced telehealth to some extent for one way
So
or
this was
another.
my first telehealth visit ever.
One provider that I use cycled through different processes, different platforms, and it was, I got an email to confirm, I got a text message to confirm, I had to call, like fill out a form, but I didn't really have to because I'm already with, I'm not a new patient, but it's a new platform, so like these are these tech growing pains. That's going to happen. I mean, that stuff plateaus out. The real issues are not, are they going to show up on time? It's what they see. Are they going to burn out? There are other issues I feel like that are bigger picture. The issue of like, well, I got on and it didn't ping her right. Like, that's kind of a small
Right.
potato.
And I see your small potatoes argument, but for me, who spent 45 minutes waiting, it felt
It's
like a bigger
frustrating.
deal.
Oh, it's
Yeah,
frustrating, man. I totally agree
but
with you.
and again, she was wonderful about it for sure. But I
I'm
blame the
sure she was
change
embarrassed. Like,
in
that's not
venue.
something that,
She
it's,
was, she
yeah.
was. But that's my point. Like, I think that there is this expectation, because part of it is if I wait in the doctor's office for a half hour, I wouldn't even think it's that odd. But waiting on a media platform
Cause
for a half hour is a huge time.
you've got the camera on you. You're just like, man, when
Yeah,
are you going to, I
right.
suddenly I've got things I need to do
Yeah,
that I didn't have to
exactly.
do before I sat down,
I think these are all what you're calling growing pains, I think, is also expectations of the platform itself. So I think that's kind of interesting as we continue.
No,
Um,
absolutely.
and
Just
I wonder if we switch from telehealth to a telepresence on the metaverse, does that change? Like, do I now apply telehealth expectations or Skype expectations, or do I apply this in-person meeting at this point? And you know what? You just have
so
to wait in the doctor's waiting room.
I know we're kind of at the tail end of this
Yeah.
call on this podcast, kind of, but I do want to kind of say that with our communication, with our description of the telehealth experience, we've only talked about our side as a patient, right?
Mhm.
We haven't really kind of explored is on the other side of the screen, right? There's always going to
Mhm.
be patients who try to skirt the system, and
Oh, absolutely.
and the patient care shouldn't be compromised at the expense of a witch hunt for everybody, you know. So
Correct. Absolutely.
that's huge. There's a line between telehealth.
We need to get a physician who can tell us the other side of this experience, where they're constantly harassed, where they feel like they're expected to do more with less. They're
And
expected
were they
to,
suspicious? Like
yeah,
what's a red flag? You know, that's. But to be fair, I would assume that those scenarios where those red flags exist and where they're suspicious of patients kind of trying to skirt stuff, like those should have been in-person visits anyway.
that's an interesting point. So, is the metaverse or Second Life or the telehealth um, just a stopgap towards a actual meeting? And maybe there's an argument to be made for
I
that
think it's
too.
complimentary. I think it's yeah.
Yeah.
It's not a stopgap. I
Um,
think it's here to stay for sure. But to what extent?
Interesting. Yeah. Well, we probably, it sounds like we really need to come back to this and maybe tackle each topic individually. Tell presence, we
Metaverse
sort
part
of touched on
17 and a half tomorrow.
basically, basically. Maybe we can talk about digital twins, which is kind of interesting as well.
A what?
Um, Digital twins. We'll talk about that next time, hopefully.
Oh, I thought you said digital Twitch. I was like, that doesn't make sense.
No, digital twins. Um, okay, so again, this was wonderful. Please feel free to reach out to us. You can find me on Twitter at Darshan Talks. You can also find us on our website, darshantalks.com. You can remember, this is not legal advice or clinical advice. These are just considerations, and they don't reflect the opinions of the host, the guests, the employers, or our clients. And this was wonderful having you as always, Major. And we'll have you again next week, and we'll talk
Did you just
more.
say like my opinions don't reflect my opinions? Is
Pretty
that
much, I guess. Don't
okay?
necessarily reflect my opinions. Well, I guess they do reflect my opinions. Well, statements I'm making don't necessarily reflect my opinion. So what I'm saying is, I might be playing devil's advocate.
No, I know. I'm being that
I
guy.
know.
All right.
That's fair. That's fair. Again, thanks everyone.
Thanks, guys.